Hi everyone, it is Financial Sharktress Galit Sadiq, and this week we are going to be live with Claudia Bloom of Rock Locations, and our live is all about how she is maintaining Rock Locations during these crazy, crazy times. So, hi Claudia, how are you? Anyone who doesn't know Claudia Bloom, she is an amazing woman that I met through the Ladies of Business Rockaway Beach, and she is the founder of Rock Locations, and which is a company that basically represents locations all around the Rockaways and I think the nearby communities as well, for photo and video shoots. She is also an acting coach and an actress. And what else? Is there anything that I'm missing? And magazine editor. Let's do this one more time.
Okay.
All is good. I see we went live, so um, I think it's all good.
Okay.
Tell us how you are staying relevant during these difficult times when your business is technically shut down, but you want to stay open and stay relevant to your audience.
Right. That's a good question, Galit, because it's not just for Rock Locations, it's for anyone who has their own business. You know, if you shut the doors, are you shut forever or are you just suspending the work you're doing? And it was really hard, a decision, but I didn't have a choice. And our local newspaper, The Wave, reached out to entrepreneurs in Rockaway, said, we'd like to share your story. And I was so hesitant. I said, I don't want anyone to know that I'm not in production, but I didn't, it was out of our hands. So we did a story about suspending Rock Locations, and I liked that word. It seemed temporary. And then when you and I have been talking for about 5 weeks about doing this, it just didn't seem like the right time. But we came up with the idea of maintaining, what have I done in these 5 weeks? And it has been busy. I didn't think I'd have anything to do, but I wanted to really maintain a presence and be as active, as vocal, with sort of a shift in tone. And I think that's good for any entrepreneur in business now. It's that we're still here, we're still alive, we still care. So my business, as you explained earlier, I am a location representative for homes and businesses in the Rockaways in Queens, New York City. I have about 75 or 80 locations right now. I started it 3 years ago. I have a few locations in the city, one photo studio in New Jersey and one in Brooklyn and 2 in Manhattan. But otherwise, I'm local to my community. So I just decided, what am I going to do? Part of it was keeping very present and viable on social media. So I kept connecting with connections on LinkedIn, just like I always would. Art directors, creative directors, videographies, fashion photographers, let them know about Rock Locations. I heard from 2 who said, you know what, this isn't a good time. That's not a good idea. And I said, oh no, I didn't want to make anyone feel bad, but I had changed my note to say that, stay safe. And when we get back to production, here's what I want you to know. And 2 people were like, not cool. And about 15 people was like, awesome. We'll keep you in mind. Stay safe. We love to hear that you're still out there. So I felt like I was doing the right thing.
Yeah.
So I maintained the LinkedIn presence, the Facebook presence. Instagram, at first, I didn't really just want to show a kitchen and a living room and a great gym or a yoga studio. It just felt kind of strange. I didn't know when we were going to get back into those spaces. How am I going to get crews in there? So I just initially showed the community, like we're still here, the beach is here, the surfers are here, people are on their bikes, keeping social distance. I mean, I really showed people social distancing and physical distancing. And I just wanted them to know I'm here in Rockaway, I'm keeping an eye, but we've just suspended production. So that's kind of initially what kept me really busy. In addition to which, I reached out, I had about 6 or 8 clients who I was in conversation with about doing a shoot. One had been booked and that got canceled, a small film at our vintage home shop right in town. And then about 6 or 7 others, homes, fashion shoot, a digital home story. So I reached out to all of them, and just said, hey, we don't know when this is going to end. Love to pick up again when we can. So all of them still heard from me. I didn't let anyone disappear. So I did that as well. I participated in some Zoom meetings. All these meetings are going on, and 2 of them I was invited to were the production meetings, and art directors and a producer and 5 or 6 experts. And I joined 2 of them. And the first one was, how do we self-quarantine? Is it okay to have shoots? And how about a small shoot and 1 photographer and 1 stylist and 1 art director? It was right in the beginning. And a few people, I think that's going to be okay. And a few others were like, it's not okay. This is not going to get better before it's going to get worse before it gets better. So the takeaway from that was just shut down, just stop. If you're a photographer and you want to shoot in your home by yourself, I can't do anything by myself without my locations, but some people in the business can. I can't. So that was the advice. And then the second one was more financially, where's this going financially? Companies are losing money. Companies are laying people off. Film and TV is shut down. How's that going to affect the big picture, when we get back? So I learned some tips from each of those. I met new contacts who I then reached out to and told them about Rock Locations afterwards. So that was another thing I was really active about doing. Do you want to hear more, or do you want to ask?
Yeah, so I actually have a question about what you just said. So you had some shoots that were already scheduled, or that were in the final stages of being scheduled. I want to know, I know you said just maintaining contact, and I've spoken with some attorneys who recommended that if any like live events get canceled, to not cancel them, but to postpone it to either a date far enough in the future that you believe that you'll be able to do it at that date, or to postpone it to a to be determined date. Was that an avenue that you decided to go, or did they kind of just flat out cancel, and being, the representative of the location and not necessarily involved in the actual shoot, was that something that you couldn't control?
Each one was a little different. So just one was booked. We were ready to go in like the 3rd week of March into the vintage shop. And that was just pulled, say, we don't know when we can get back. It was actually a student film, an NYU film. And because they were having to leave campus and close dorms, they didn't really know what was going to be next. And the student filmmaker said, I'll be back to you when I can. And I said, just take care, do what you have to do. I looked back at some of my other notes, and one of them, it was a digital TV series, like a home makeover series. And the producer had been out a week before we went into quarantine, and he scouted 6 of my houses. I had set up that scout day, the 6 that he loved. It would have been a 4-day shoot in 3 of those houses. It was a big shoot with a nice budget. And we were then going to move forward and talk about early April kind of shoot. And then when this shut down, he said, I think we're looking at like late April, early May. Well, we're not now, but nobody knew. He threw out a date, and I've gotten 2 like that. I looked back on, what did they say? No one said to me, no, we're done. Okay. Absolutely not. So again, when I go back to them, when it's been lifted, quarantine, they may have changed, and they may be doing a different project, and their budgets may have changed. I don't know. That's out of my control. You're right.
Yeah. And is there anything that you're telling the locations in order to kind of get them ready to be able to shoot in that location again? Maybe like cleaning or safety, or, is there any kind of communication that you're having with your locations?
When this, right before we were like just lockdown, when it was like it's just starting and no groups more than 50 people could be together, that's how it started. And hygiene conversation about washing your hands, that was coming out. That was sort of what was coming out. So I wrote a letter to all of my location owners saying things are going to be shifting here. I'm still in conversation. If any of you are not comfortable at this point with me having these conversations, I need to know that now. I got about 3 or 4 saying, not right now. This doesn't seem to be the good time to have a crew in my house, even if it is 10 or 12 people. And then I set up protocol. I set up No one can come into your location they first have to wash their hands when they arrive. In addition to wrapping a set, after wrapping and putting it back exactly the way they found it, they're going to have to come armed with sanitizing products to completely clean that location top to bottom. I don't want anyone there who's feeling a little under the weather. So the night before, a producer would have to replace that person. So I sent those ideas out thinking, okay, I think this is it. I think we got this. And then it was like, boom, shut down. So I didn't even get to implement those. And I heard from a few who were not comfortable. Now having, I'm thinking a lot about moving ahead, implementing those, but I think there's going to be more. I think there's more coming out that we don't know. It's not just about washing your hands, and I'm really vague about that, in addition to the date, we don't know. It's also, how are we going to do this? Everything. How are we going to go to restaurants and concerts and bars? And how are we going to have crew shoots? And I don't know yet. So I'm on a lot of Facebook production groups. There's a lot of conversations about this. So every day people are weighing in, how are we going to do this? How are we going to do this? And I'm learning, tips and ideas, what we're going to have to do. Don't know yet exactly how it's going to work, but.
Yeah. And I guess that's really the conversation going forward is like, how do we change and adapt to the new normal, which is going to be way different than the prior actions that you took in order to book different locations for shoots. It's going to have an added element that you never had to factor in before. And I'm wondering, like, I know during this time you're probably kind of setting up for that. Is there any resources that you think you need moving into that stage?
Yeah, I'm definitely going to need some guidance and some help, really, of how to do it. I mean, I may lose some of my locations. I'm worried about some of the small businesses that may not survive this time in Rockaway. As you know, they struggle off season anyway. Summer's their big financial season, and I'm worried some of them may not make it. It's not that I'm not naming names. I have no idea who, and I hope I'm wrong, of course. Some homeowners may feel like they don't want crew, even if it's small. But again, I'm hoping I'm wrong there. So I'm hoping that's sort of a given, most of my inventory. How to do it, I'm going to need some guidance. These Zoom meetings are helpful. The Facebook production groups are helpful. I have a couple of mentors, like, who are location reps. They've been location reps much longer than I have. I actually have a phone call scheduled this week with one of them. And it was really more to pick his brain. I was planning to talk to him about how he markets and his PR skills and how he got his business really going bigger than mine. But that's going to be part of our conversation this week. How are you? He has many more locations, all in New York City, Brooklyn, Westchester, Long Island, mostly homes, all up and down the East Coast. And I will want to sort of ask him, what are you planning to do? And I think the producers will help me as well. I think setting up a shoot, there's going to have to be that conversation, are his crew all showing up in masks? Maybe, and maybe their camera guys are all working in masks, and just talent can take those masks off, the models and the actors, I mean, I just ordered masks just to have them really ready to go for my family, because I think we're all going to be wearing them for a while, in social places. So I am concerned about that. I don't really know. It's really unknown. It's unknown to all of us, whether you're in production or anything else, right?
Yeah. So. And then what about right now? Financially, I know that you're doing the virtual acting coaching. Tell us a little bit more about that and what you're able to do virtually. And then if there are other avenues that you're taking to kind of maintain your income during this time.
It's tricky. I'm not going to, lie. My rock locations really is my baby. And when those shoots come in, that's where income comes in. And when you completely suspend, that's over. My hope is, though, just thinking ahead, my hope is that companies have saved a lot of money not being able to shoot. So they may have better budgets because they haven't had to spend money. And also they may need to catch up So film and TV may be busier than ever. Once they figure out the guidelines, I'm hoping they're way behind. Magazine fashion shoots are way behind, and TV and commercials are behind. So I'm hoping it's going to be really positive for my business. In terms of what else I'm doing, you're right. I do audition coach actors. So I have a few actors that I'm coaching remotely. One I'm doing sort of regularly, getting her ready. She's new in the business. She was retired, and then she wanted to learn about acting. So I want to get her ready to go out. I also am a magazine editor for women's magazines. Last week I was busy editing 2 stories for them. All the staffs obviously are working from home and they're a little shorthanded. So they're throwing me some stories to work on. Other than that, I'm just sort of scouring, remote gigs. I'm looking online. Who else needs a writing job or editing or my advice on anything that I could do from home? So I'm just trying to find those. Waiting for a tax refund, waiting for the stimulus check. I mean, fortunately, a couple of things are due. And also, and I'm sure you know this, I called all my bills, my providers. I called every single one, every utility company, phone company, car insurance, everyone, and just said, are you making any concessions for like April and May? Most of them said, yes, you can postpone payment. So I've gotten postponements on almost all of them. A couple were no, but they were minor bills, so I could take care of them. My car insurance is offering 15% reduction on 2 months, and I can postpone that, so that bill will be less. So I can kind of hold on to my cash, put it aside, and hopefully when we come back around and I have to pay all those bills, Rock Locations will be back at the same time. I did apply. There were a couple of things that I think I found on your resource list. One was called Thrive Foundation.
Okay.
And one was called Lost My Gig. I don't know if I found it through you or somebody else. So I sent a note to both of them about Rock Locations. I don't fit into the small business mold on a lot of those applications. I don't have anyone on. I have one website designer, but she's not on payroll. Her name is Alex. She's great, but I don't have this sort of payroll system set up. And the way my income comes in, it all comes in for the owner, and I take a percentage. So it's hard to show sort of my books for those. So I wrote to Thrive and I wrote to Lost My Gig. I told them about the one film that got lost because I could say how much money was lost. And I asked for some money. We'll see.
Good.
I did those 2. That's it in terms of, as of now, financially. Oh, I did a photographer friend, a very well-known photographer. He does interiors like Architectural Digest. And he said in the beginning, he said, why don't you offer your skills like a location scout for Rockaways? So they need pictures of the beach. They need pictures of the boardwalk and surfers because they have shoots that are pending. Why don't you run around and take some pictures and like book your time for doing this and send them pictures? They can't get to the Caribbean to scout, but maybe they need some ocean shots. And so I offered my services on all my social media channels. Nothing yet, but that word is sort of out there that I can at least get outside and try to use my skills that way.
Yeah, I did actually see some stuff on your Instagram about, scouting locations outside and walking on the boardwalk and doing, location scouting, social distance style.
Right.
So, that's a great idea. And then have you figured out or thought about any ways to do, like virtual showings of your sites? Or was that like something that was on your radar before, or is it something that would be on your radar now?
Well, my website obviously shows all my locations, which you've seen. Actually, right now, I'm in the process working with my designer. We're going to do a rehaul on my site. It was her idea to make it more user-friendly, a little hotter, a little hipper. She felt it was a little static. And I was like, no, for a few months. I was like, no, it's fine. And then I thought, wait a minute, nobody's really looking very much right now. She has the time. I have the time. Why don't we? She offered, to spend some time, and I kept putting it off. So she's just now, tomorrow we have a meeting, she and I, a phone meeting. We're going to talk about updating that site and make it a little more fun, a little more playful. In terms of virtual, I can't shoot virtually like I could use my home, but I can't use anybody else's location really. there's really no way that I can do that. I do have a video editor friend who was, prior to this, doing a little promo for me. So I had sent him a bunch of pictures and he had picked some music, and I had sent him a lot of text, and he was going to do a short promo about rock locations. He got crazy busy. He works for a major magazine doing all their digital shoots. So it was on hold, and I just sort of had to let it go. But I think I'm going to bug him again and say, is now a time to put this together and get a little cute promo for me going?
Yeah, because I think like during this time, especially when you're shut down, it's the, great time to do all of that other side work that you're kind of always putting to the side while you're focusing on the actions that make you money. And right now you can't do those actions. So you can do, the making things pretty, the making things user friendly, all of those tweaks and improvements that you've been thinking about for all of this time, but haven't actually had the time to do it. The problem is usually, now you don't necessarily have the funds to do it. Have you thought about doing other ways of payment, like barter systems, or trying to, like, I'll help you with this if you can help me with the video, or help me with fixing my website?
Right.
Because I know that money is tight right now for everyone.
Well, this promo was a friend who used to live in the Rockaways. They were neighbors, he and his family. They left to move to Brooklyn. And he had always said to me, I'd love to shoot for you. And I said, well, I don't have the budget. This is last year. And he said, I want to just do something gratuitous. I just think I love Rockaways. I love your business. I think it's a great idea. Let me just do something for you. So that's how that all started. He didn't want anything. I mean, I would tag him and put his name on everything, but he loved the idea of showing Rockaways the way I was showing it. My website designer wants to learn this other platform. So she said, I want to learn it. I have the time. Can I just do this for you? And are you sure? So she's just doing it for me. I said, I would love to talk about compensation when I'm back to work. And she said, that's fine. She's been working for me for like 8 months. She's so happy to be doing the work. And so she's graciously offered, just don't worry about it. Let me just do this and let us both hopefully make more money. The more I book, the more I can pay her, obviously, right? Yeah. So, but in terms, so that's, otherwise I have because I have no money right now to like spend on anything like this. It's a good question. I was contacted by an international production directory called Paradise Production. I think I have a note here. I think it's called Paradise. And they've always reached out to me. We'd love you in the directory. It's international. It's all over Europe. It's all production. And it's just been out of my budget. I couldn't do it. They sent me an email about 3 months, 2 or 3 weeks ago, saying, we'd love to have you in the directory. We're offering 2 free months. Oh, 2 free months to be in the directory. I said, yeah, but then what happens? So then she sent me her rate sheet, which was out of my budget. And she said, we're offering a 20% discount at that time. I said, I still don't even know where this is going. I'd love to be in the directory for 2 months, and I'll put it on social media. And she said, fine, just let's get you in there. If after 2 months you can't continue, let us know and we'll just take you out of it. So I am in that directory. And so that was sort of a nice little offer. I thought anything I can get right now that's not going to cost me anything would be great. So those are I guess that's what I'm doing. I reached out to a company called Score. Do you know Score? They have retired mentors.
Okay.
And they are mentors in all different areas, business and finance and advertising and banking. And I reached out to them and I said, I heard about your company. I would love to learn more about PR and marketing for rock locations. I had been thinking about this all year, but now I thought I might need it even more to really let people know I exist. So they connected me to a retired woman who was an advertising executive for 20, 30 years. We had a 1-hour phone call. We get 2 phone calls for free. So they're volunteers. And she said she loves doing it. So we had a 1-hour phone call where I told her about my company and she told me about what she did. And I really picked her brain about how do I book commercials. So she gave me a lot of insight about commercial work. And we have a follow-up if I want. So that was just a free hour and I can get another one. I'm trying to use my time like that, you know?
Okay. So also, I would love if you could post that resource on in the group or
Okay.
in, on my page, and I'll add it to my resource list because that sounds amazing
Yeah,
to
it
be able
was.
to have conversations with retired mentors and
Yeah. And the crazy thing, she lives in New Jersey, but when we spoke, she was in the Caribbean. They have a winter house in the Caribbean. She got stuck. So she couldn't get back home. She was planning to get home. So we were doing this call. She was in the Caribbean. I don't know what island, but it was great. And she actually was the one who suggested I speak to this mentor, find out how did he get started? What was his PR? What was his marketing? And he said, let's talk this week. So we're talking on Wednesday. That was one of her tips, you know. I will give you that
great.
resource. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. And then I know that a lot of freelancers or self-employed people are trying to apply for unemployment. Is
Mm-hmm.
that a route that you thought about? And, what are how do you feel about that?
Yeah. Well, I did. And I spoke to my accountant about it and I read a lot about it. And these Facebook production groups were a lot of conversations. Again, what's tricky is the income that comes in that I file my taxes for. It's all, out in the open. I take a percentage. So it's like overage income. So it's kind of tricky and I have a lot of expenses. So I didn't really know how to show that as self-employed. So my accountant said, why don't you file as a freelancer, as a magazine editor who freelances? Because that's all on the books. That's all W-2 income. It's not 1099. It's a little bit easier. So I did file for that. I've had unemployment before when I was laid off from another magazine and I had reached my limit. So I reapplied and it looks like I'm getting some of the extra. Like I'm not getting regular unemployment based on my income, but I'll be getting a portion of that 600 just because I'm
Okay.
a freelancer unemployed, even though I had reached my limits to my benefits. If that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense.
Yeah.
So it looks like I was approved. So I'm actually waiting for that phone call this week to have that. So that would be I forgot I might have that income coming in. I hope so.
Yeah.
It's complicated. It's all
It
really, it is,
It
right?
is really complicated, and there's so many sources, there's so many different resources, and then all different sources of information. And I found, especially doing what I do, that the rules keep changing.
Mm,
And so it's really hard to stay on top of, what everybody is eligible for and what everyone is actually going to get. And I've had, a lot of people apply for things and then find out later that it wasn't, it's not going to be what they said it was going to be.
mhm.
And so I'm kind of, I'm definitely struggling with that, of like trying to help people get as much capital as they can to stay afloat during this time,
Right.
and just having the rules just constantly change on me. And I'm a part of, like, I also am a part of all of these accountant groups on Facebook, and I take part in all the webinars and the Zoom meetings, and I feel like it's like this pervasive thought and conversation of like, we're just going to keep trying and keep plugging away and keep like applying for everything and see what happens, because the rules just keep changing on us.
Right. That's exactly what my accountant has said. Every time I ask him a question, he goes, as of today, here's what you need to do. You might want to run this by me tomorrow. But as of now, here's what I think you should do, without, it's not cut in stone. He's giving me his best advice. He says, I'm trying to catch up too, it's the same thing. So I think whatever business we're in, there's so much in flux. I mean, this is a crisis like nothing before, in our lifetimes. And it's so, and people are sick and people are dying on top of it,
Yeah.
It's about staying healthy. And, in New York, our numbers are pretty bad. So it's just trying to stay healthy, and I'm doing yoga and working out every day and eating and sleeping well and following all those rules, because doing some self-care, because I want to be ready to be back in business. I don't want to feel like I'm exhausted from this time and not having taken care of myself,
And is that how you're keeping yourself sane mentally and physically?
Yes, I have a routine. I'm such a routine person. I don't like, and I said to my son the other day, I really liked my routine. Like I liked the structure I'd set up here in Rockaway, as having been here like 4 years. I liked the routine I was in, and now it's sort of gotten thrown out the window. So I've created a routine where the morning is about business and social media and networking and all the LinkedIn and Instagram. Like that's my morning. I have to know it's done. And then kind of midday is other things, maybe family, maybe friends, maybe I'm coaching an actor, maybe I'm having a phone call with my web designer, which I'll be doing tomorrow, just something else. Spending some time with my son who came back with me for this time. And then we take a beach walk or a bike ride every day, usually together. Sometimes I go out by myself, but I've walked the beach. Today it's like a hurricane outside, as you know, but I do that every day. So a distance, keeping our physical distancing, now wearing masks. And then he and I end the day around 5:30 on our mats, and we do a half-hour yoga session. And then we do some weights. He's an athlete, so he puts me through some weight training. Together we do it for like 15 minutes. And then I'm just like exhausted, And then we cook. I mean, we both are cooking now. So one of us, we take turns. And then we end the evening with some Netflix generally. So we pick something, and then I'm done. I'm like wiped out. So, I mean, working from home, it's not that dissimilar, but I don't have a gym that I can go to. I can't run any errands really. I can't I'll often take my laptop and go to our local cafe or our local bakery and get some work done there and see some friends. It's just a small town, but that we can't do. So a lot of it is familiar to me and a lot of it's not, and I'm very active physically. So that's a little tricky to be homebound.
Yeah, I know. I'm definitely feeling the cabin fever also, and trying to stay productive and stay focused, and it is so difficult to keep yourself kind of like mentally still in the game when you hear all of this stuff going on and you hear about the people, a lot of people in the Rockaway community got sick, and there's just been a lot of like a personal heartache that's happened with our community. And I know my feed is like constant, and it's really hard to keep yourself like mentally upbeat during this time when you're surrounded by all of that.
Right.
And I think that's where I've reached out. I've used this kind of as a method of support. I used our Ladies of Business meeting. I've definitely stayed active in groups because I just feel like that's what I need. And I realized that like putting together that resource board for me was huge, because that was a way that I knew that I could help.
Right.
And I just felt like I didn't have a way to really help the people that were asking for help. And I knew that was something I could do, and that made me, that held it together for me, made me feel better when members of my family were sick. And it was just it was like everything was happening all at once.
Right.
And I guess staying true to your routine or developing a new routine was something similar for you.
Right. I mean, it's obviously a little bit different, but I mean, it's just my son, after a couple of days with me, because he's 24. We haven't lived together this long in many, many years. He said, "You're the most disciplined person I ever met. Are you crazy?" And there's some flexibility, but that routine made me feel safer and more grounded and not get so sad and not get emotional. Of course, I was reading the news and I'm listening to the news. I can't ignore it. But I felt like I had to control something. This all feels out of control. And that helps control it. We can choose what we want to eat. I can be flexible. I can be flexible about Netflix. But my work and sort of my physical health too really is tied into my emotional health. And it always has been for me, So it's a complicated time, I next week I have a newsletter going out. So I know you do the newsletters too. And I do it once a month. It's the third week of each month. And my designer and I tomorrow will talk about it. And I want to still have a presence, and I still have things to share, that I've done this interview. I did the wave interview. I added a new house just the other day. It was actually a local painter who lives in Rockaway, a young woman who's always said to me, I would love you to rep my Victorian house. And I said, great, send me some pictures. Let me see if it's something I could use. But just every, months would go by and I'd never get them. And she was busy working, and she's a mom. She's got 2 little kids. And so I thought, this would be a good time. So I reached out to her. I said, hey, do you have some time to clean up the house and take pictures? And if they're not good enough, I can send somebody in when we're ready. Oh, that's perfect. What a great idea. I want to clean my house from top to bottom. Well, she sent me such beautiful photos. I mean, the house is great. She's a painter, and every room is a different, amazing color. It's a great style. I think there's going to be a lot of interest for it. So I was able to add new inventory. I didn't expect that. So anyway, in my newsletter, that'll be in there to show them still doing things. My last job was kind of, I guess, early March, and it was in one of the offices that I rep in the Rockaways. And it was for a software company. And it was 3 little videos, like comedy videos. They're great. So I just got those a few weeks ago, and those will be in my newsletter to say, hey, this is the last job we did, So, but it'll be, my subject and my intro will be kind of lighter, not so, let's get back, let's work. It'll be more about, let's stay safe, and I hope you're okay. And thanks for your support and your patience, something more to that effect, because we don't know what's down the road.
Yeah. And I know today I was watching Cuomo like an hour or 2 ago, had, started speaking with the governors. So Andrew Cuomo is the governor of New York. Mm-hmm. And he was speaking with a bunch of other governors of surrounding states. And they were talking about steps moving forward to start reopening. And there wasn't any formal announcement, but it was more like okay, so we're going to put together these task forces to think about reopening, but that the economic reopening has to be in line with our health. And we can't start reopening if we're not healthy. And so it has to go hand in hand, because we've kind of in New York started to plateau a little bit. And we obviously don't want another resurgence. And other countries that did reopen too soon are having another round of infections. Right. So what are your, how do you think that you are going to put steps in place to start reopening? Or is that not even in your, in your agenda right now?
It's the $10,000 question. People keep saying, I wonder when we're going to get back out. I keep saying, I don't care what the date is. It's how is more important to me than when. If you tell me 2 more weeks or 2 more months, we have to sort of go with that. But in terms of a business owner, how do we do it? How do we do it? Like you just said, how do we get people out here to Rockaways? I don't know yet. I mean, I have studios, the 4 studios in New York and New Jersey, and those are owners who live there and manage them, and I sort of co-rep those. So maybe I'll be starting with that slowly. Maybe I'll be just getting them some small fashion shoots that are already based in the city. They don't have to travel to the Rockaways. Maybe that's how we'll get back to work. And we can control the numbers and the protocol and the guidelines. But I'm really going to be reaching out to my community and just saying, how do we do this? I want to stay healthy. I show up at every shoot. I meet my crew. I make sure they take care of the location. I'm there for the first half hour, taking behind the scenes pictures as they load in, making sure they have what they need, answering questions. They always ask, where's Starbucks? And we don't have a Starbucks in Rockaways. I get that a lot. So I'm making sure that they're safe and they're good and they're happy and the owner's happy. I make sure the owner doesn't have any issues. Then I step away and I'll come back if they need me at the end. Well, I don't want to get sick. I don't want to be around that either if I don't feel really safe. I don't want my owners. I mean, I care as much about my owners as I do about my clients. It's really equal for me part of that is because I live in Rockaway and the owners are my friends. I see them in yoga. I see them at the Y. I see them at the brewery, the beer bar. I run into them. They're like in my life. So I don't want to hear that anyone got, actually, one of my owners did have the virus. I found out. He posted it on Facebook. He's recovered 100%, but he said it was a rough couple of weeks. He was sick in his house for 2 weeks. So I don't want to hear about that after. So I'm just going to be slowly stepping into these waters. I mean, the good news, bad news is I've always been frustrated that I don't have these big shoots. Like I don't have these giant features and these giant commercials, these giant TV episodes. I've gotten the calls, like HBO has called me and Netflix has called me, but I haven't booked those yet. And I've been so frustrated. I almost feel now good. I get the little fashion shoots, the magazines, the student films, the social media videos, the digital videos, and they're great. I love these jobs, but they've all been like 8 to 15 people crews. I think my biggest was 22 people. So maybe they're going to want to come back out to Rockaway because I offer locations where we can do small shoots, and maybe I'm going to have to reduce my budgets a little bit to woo them back. But in terms of health and safety, I am going to be reaching out to some experts and guidance, because I don't really know yet, does everyone have to prove they had a test? Does everyone have to show me that? It's really tricky,
Yeah.
So,
especially you're dealing with a lot of people in close quarters, right?
And I don't know them, so we don't know. And you mentioned Cuomo and de Blasio, our mayor, are now in controversy whether or not schools should reopen. De Blasio said no, and the Cuomo said, I haven't said no yet. So even they are not sure what's the best step for kids in schools, and how do you make that work?
I know, and if kids are not in school, it's really hard for the parents to go back to work. So it's all interconnected, and I do have that same view as you of like, let's just wait and see what happens, because this is like unprecedented. We haven't had this before.
Right.
We haven't been shut down like this. The last time that we had like this crazy pandemic or influenza, it was in 1918.
Right.
Like we have no idea in our modern society, like which direction this is going to go. And thankfully, it didn't necessarily go the route that they were saying that it was going to go in New York, because we did put the shutdown in place.
Right. Totally.
And like people listened, as much as we like to say that people are not listening, like a lot of people did listen.
Right.
And we have managed to, it's gotten really bad. It was getting really bad, but it's not nearly as bad as the projections were. And so I'm kind of hoping the economic recovery will go along those same lines.
Right. Because, I mean, I think the difference too with 1918, I think creating a vaccine is going to happen a lot more quickly now. I mean, they're talking about skipping a lot of the clinical trials and getting the vaccines through much more quickly than they normally would. Well, we may have to wait till there's a vaccine. I don't know, I mean, they're saying maybe by the end of the year, there'll be one. Everyone in Rockaway is, what about our summer? Wait, we're going to lose our summer? I mean, that's huge in terms of our social life, in terms of our businesses. That's what Rockaway is really here for and famous for, and people crowd the beaches and they crowd the concessions and they crowd the surf club. We might have to skip a summer, like the summer we may just have to be on our bikes and walk, and we may not be able to do those things yet. I might have to sit on my deck and get some sun, solo. People are going to have to make adjustments. Makes me crazy. And financially, I'll have to see where I'm at, how long I can do that for. But we don't know. I was reading an interesting article about Japan. I don't know the numbers, but their numbers are really low there. And the way they live their life, they take their shoes off before they enter a home. If they don't know somebody, they bow. They never touch hands. They never shake. They're given a hot washcloth before every meal. They're always used to washing their hands at the table. They wear masks all flu season, cold and flu season. They just are always wearing them. And I thought that was fascinating. That culture is obviously showing what does really work, and they haven't been affected the way we have been.
Yeah. And this is kind of like, we have to think about what the new normal is going to be, because we can't just immediately go back to the way things were, because it's going to be sticking around for a little while. And they are showing that in places that reopened, there were new waves, and even people that already had it that got reinfected, that didn't develop, the immunity that people are saying that we'll develop. So there is going to be kind of a transition to a new kind of normal. And you can see it just from, like you said, just the difference in what happened in different countries, like in Italy, where people are hugging and kissing all the time, and people live with their grandparents or live with their parents or visit parents and grandparents constantly. Like they were affected in a way that other countries haven't been.
Right.
And so, like, and that's a really scary thing to think about, and also like a really emotionally, like, as someone that's like a hugger, like I like hugging people, like I've always like been hug and very affectionate, and we'll have to like rethink how we do that, how how our lives are going to change socially when we do get to be in the same room with other people.
I know. I can't even imagine. I mean, Rockaway being a small community, I've never lived anywhere where people hug so much, and we're in New York City, but I lived in Manhattan for a long, long time. I mean, I hugged my friends, but here I meet somebody at a meeting one time, and next time I see her at the beach, we usually hug. I mean, it's like, that's happened so often out here. And I was so knocked out by sense of community and how much I hug people I know here. It's just sort of protocol, I know my son is a basketball player, they all dap up and they all hug, and that dap kind of athlete, sweaty contact, and he's like, wow, how are we going to do this? We're going to learn to do it and share feelings in other ways, Like I found myself when I wasn't wearing a mask, I was blowing kisses to friends across the boardwalk, So you find other ways to do it,
Yeah. I wonder if like eye contact is going to be on the uptick now.
I think
like
so.
That's always like the really uncomfortable. I've been in a lot of like I've done a lot of these like connection exercises where you look deeply into somebody's eyes, not touching, not saying a word. And I'm wondering if like that's the route we're gonna start taking, of like these really uncomfortable but meaningful eye contact connections.
Maybe, and there'll be new hand symbols and new gestures. We're going to have to come up. We'll start to bow. We'll have to create other ways to share connection, share love and connection. I sort of can't imagine not, but it's going to take a while, obviously. So,
yeah. All right. Well,
good.
This was amazing, and I'm glad that we finally got it done.
I know.
Even with the technical difficulties. If people want to get in contact with you, how do they do it?
Thank you for asking. So my website is rocklocations.com. Even when it's new, it'll have the same URL. My Instagram is at rocklocations. And on Facebook, you can search for Rock Locations, 2 words. And if they wanted to email me, ask me any questions, it's Claudia at rocklocations.com. So Instagram, I'm on LinkedIn as well with my name, Claudia Bloom. So there's lots of ways to reach me. I'm happy to answer any questions or share information and keep the conversation going for production, hoping we come back strong.
Yeah, and if you got my newsletter today, all of Claudia's contact information is in there, so you'll be able to reach her. And if you haven't, you should sign up for them, because you will get all of this information and all the information on the guests that I have come in. Thank you so much for being here
You're welcome.
and for sticking through, even with the technical difficulties. And I hope you have an amazing day.
Thank you. Stay safe. Stay home. Here. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.